time clock, a light switch, and a filter. And the vacuum cleaner. Now we've got in-floor cleaning systems, variable speed pumps, salt chlorinators, UV sanitizers, things like that. The equipment side of the pool has gotten a little more complicated, but maintenance of your pool is still pretty straightforward and pretty simple. We kind of like to dumb it down, if you will, and make sure that you understand that as long as you keep your water in balance and keep things clean, the rest of it's going to take care of itself most of the time. So Jason's very good at talking about the things that you need to do to take care of your pool. Probably the number one thing I like to preach, and I've preached for 20 years, is pH. Everybody knows it's a pain to keep your pH down. You've got to keep adding that muriatic acid, but if you keep your pH in balance, you're not going to see that calcium line around your tile. You're not going to see calcium on your interior finish. It's just your water's going to be cleaner and clearer, and you're going to enjoy your pool a lot more. So that being said, there's other things that we offer that help you with that. Jason will go into those. Jason's our service manager. Andrew McGuire is here for those of you who are online. Andrew's online with you to answer any questions you have. Just type them in the chat box. He's also uploaded some of the handouts, so for those of you that are online, you can get those handouts and download them so you have them. So without further ado, Jason, we'll get started.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm going to kind of stand over to the left, so I'm on camera and out of the light. So this is servicing, filtration, circulation, maintenance. Like Ken talked about, real important stuff that's easy to take care of. As long as you're doing it and keeping up with it, everything will run a whole lot better. So we're going to start with the easy stuff. These baskets. Everyone over at the skimmer on your deck should have a basket similar to this, or the exact basket. These guys you want to check weekly, bi-weekly. Kind of depends on the yard. If you got a lot of trees, you got a lot of neighbors with trees, anything that's floating is going to end up in this guy. So if you're checking it weekly and you're seeing good amounts of debris in it, you may want to check it every couple or twice a week, I should say. You want to keep this thing clean. This is what's going to clean the top of the pool. That guy being full and not really skimming anymore, your top of the water is going to start to get real dingy. So this is the easy one. Keep it clean, and vice versa. If you don't really got anything in there every week, you can skip it every 2 weeks. Kind of depends on the yard. So this guy over here, most of you guys with in-floor systems should have one of these. This is the same kind of deal as a skimmer basket. This is in line though, so anything that moves through the main drain, especially if it gets through the skimmer basket by chance, it's going to most likely end up in this guy. So this guy will be over at your pump. You'll have a lid on it like this, clamp, twist lock style. We'll talk about the gaskets in a second. Got a basket in here. Basically going to pull this out, and it's the same thing as a skimmer. You're going to keep this thing clean. Again, this is going to be anything mostly on the bottom of the pool. If the leaves get waterlogged, rocks, debris, stuff like that, that's more sinking to the bottom, you're going to find in here. Again, keep it clean. This guy's almost more important than the skimmer basket. This is a big basket, but if it gets clogged enough where you don't got water flow, then you got problems elsewhere, right? You got no returns to the in-floor. Your filtration isn't working. Salt systems, nothing's getting flow. This is a key part. So the thing with this one is the hole, the inlet, is got to go towards the top one. If you squeeze it in any other way, you can really push it down and jam it. Again, you're just going to jam. You guys can probably see it better than me. You can jam that screen right there, and you're not doing anything. So it's got to go in right. It's got to go in right towards the hole, and then that allows your water flow. The lid. You do got a gasket under here, same thing as your pump that we'll get into. You want to lube this, not very often, once a month maybe. Keep it soft, keep it lubed. This is going to help you guys when you're going to put this back on and off. It's going to lock. You can secure that lid on, and you're tight. So this is a suction side basket, same as your pump. So when the pump's on, it's going to suck down. The lid's going to basically compress into the canister. So you want to keep it lubed just for ease of maintenance, keeping it on and off and not fighting with it. A lot of times people in backyards, I've seen or we've recommended we keep a rubber mallet there. So if it's tight, if you're having a lot of issues with it, you got small hands, stuff like that, where it's just kind of a struggle, rubber mallet's the best thing. Keep a rubber mallet by it. You can knock it. Both these lids are the same. It's just a twist lock. So you would hit it once, pop the lid off, empty the baskets. Your pump, regardless of what kind of pump you have, there's a few variations of them out there. They're all going to have the same thing. They're going to have a basket inside, just like this guy. Again, everything's got to go through this one first. So chances are you won't have a whole lot in here. If you're a vacuum pool, you're going to be cleaning this about as often as the in-floor guys will. The vacuum pools don't usually have the big canisters. So same thing, pull this out, empty it out, clean it. Debris, leaves, rocks, anything like that are going to end up in here. And the same thing as this guy, that inlet has got to go towards the front of the pump. If you get it in right, it will sink. If you're not, it's going to fight you. And you can jam these. We've seen them a ton. People jam them in. Well, this front end is just going to get clogged with leaves, and then you're out of filtration. You're not moving water anymore, and you got problems. So you want to drop that in, get it in right. Lid's the same thing as this canister. You do got an O-ring on it. This one is lock in and twist. So it doesn't have to be very tight. If you've got a rubber mallet, again, normally if you're keeping this thing lubed, you can kind of squeeze it just snug and you're good to go. Use the mallet for taking off. You don't really need to hammer this thing on and get it super tight. Again, it's suction. It's going to suck that lid down when it's off. So,
recommend to lube the gaskets with?
So I like Boss lube, Boss the 820 lube. If you get in, like we sell it next door at our retail shop, any kind of silicone lube, the magic lube, something like that. I like Boss lube a little bit better for gaskets, just because it slides a little bit easier. So you definitely want to keep it on there though. Those O-rings are, it's a wear and tear. So every couple of years, I mean, if they start to crack, thing on this one too a lot, if you're inspecting it, you see it cracked, you want to get a new O-ring. Come in here, call us out, whatever, get a gasket on there. That helps your sealing. When these things start to crack and deteriorate on you, same thing with the pump lid, you'll have a lot of air pulled in. And again, circulation, filtration, everything suffers from it. You're not priming and you're not running like you should. So these are real easy. The 3 baskets, anyone in here with vacuum pool, everyone pretty much in floor. So everyone's gonna have these 3 baskets. There's some larger pools that got 2 skimmer baskets. You guys will notice that usually one kind of traps the debris a little more than the other one, just kind of depends on suction strength. So keep these things clean, keep your water moving. It's gonna be the big key today is circulation. So the next guy is your, let me move this stuff out of the way. Salt system. Everyone in here pretty much salt system. Got any chlorine tabs in here? Okay. Yep. So salt system, this is about every 3-4 weeks. We're gonna all these numbers are based off summertime, obviously when the pool's in use, right? This guy, about every 3 to 4 weeks, you want to open up and you're going to inspect it, number 1. Number 2, if it's dirty, you're going to clean it, right? So the first thing on this guy, unions come off. This will be in line somewhere. If you're new to this and haven't done it at all, you want to pay attention. There's a flow arrow right here. Typically where we plumb them in, it is upside down, where the display, I should say, is upside down. Your flow arrow will point down. This is important for when you're done cleaning. If you stick it back the other way, you got a paddle switch in here. If it's not reading water flow, you're not circulating, or you're not producing chlorine, I should say. So that's important. First time you do it, kind of take a picture, or just keep in mind where you're at and where this arrow is going. We generally will stick stickers on our plumbing too that have arrows in your direction, so you kind of know where to go. This guy, unions. We've had people use channel locks to take the unions off. You don't want to squeeze these real tight. You don't want, strap wrenches people have used. You want to spin that off. And remember, one, you're going to be counterclockwise. The other one, you're upside down, so you're going to go reverse. If you go the wrong way, especially with channel locks, you're going to crack a union. Then you're going to be calling us going, I can't run my system because it's leaking like crazy. So you're going to peel this off. Once you get into the salt system, and we should say with all this maintenance, breakers off, right, on your panel. You got your pump breaker off. You want to make sure nothing's going to come on you. Make sure your wife's not going to turn something on the app while you're out here working, right? These guys that we're going to get into are pressure side. So if these guys are off and you're out cleaning it somewhere, you're cleaning these on the driveway, someone kicks the pump on, nothing, no one knows other than, you know, when you get out there and the yard's flooded. So in other words, the pump's not going to know, it's just going to pump water. So breakers off. This guy right in here, we've got metal blades in here. What you're looking for in here is scaling and calcium. I feel bad I can't see you. So in here, you're looking for scaling. You're looking for some calcium deposits building up in the salt cell. Again, every 3-4 weeks, you want to open this up and get into it. If you get into here and you're seeing any kind of scaling, basically calcium deposits, you're going to get into cleaning it. So this cap, does everyone have a cleaning cap in here? Everyone, no one's missing one? Right here. So they should have gave it to you on intro. If you guys don't have one, we've got a couple of more there. Get with me afterwards. And so if you're unsure, come see us when we're done, me or Andrew, and we'll get you one. This guy, what you're doing, and it don't matter what end, you're gonna thread the cap on, right? So you're gonna take this, and you're gonna stand it up on its end, and we're gonna use muriatic acid, the same acid that you guys are doing pH adjustments with. You're gonna fill the cell up mostly with water, and then a little bit of acid. So you're usually about let's say about 25% mixture acid, and then 75% water. So I generally will fill this guy up pretty high with water from the hose, grab a bucket, grab a cup, fill it up, and then add the acid in second. Acid in second is always important. You never want to add it first. You don't want full strength acid in here and attacking it before your water. You want it diluted down, in other words. I've had customers will take like a gallon jug of acid when they're down to about a quarter of it. They'll fill that up with water and they'll keep that aside for their salt cell cleaning, right? So that way they already have a pre-mixture. They can throw the cap on, they can fill it up with the solution. You're letting that sit for about 5 to 10 minutes is all it takes. So you're gonna notice a lot of bubbling. It's cleaning the calcium off there. Dump it back into a bucket. You can go back into the pool with that solution if you'd like. You can go into the yard. I don't really like going to the yard, especially if you got dogs and little kids, stuff like that. You don't want, it's gonna be diluted down, but still to be safe. Dogs will drink pretty much anything. Some dogs are sometimes kind of dumb, for lack of a better word. So you don't want them drinking that and messing with it. It'll generally kind of deter them away from it. But so you're soaking out about 5-10 minutes. You're going to dump it out. If you can see through this salt cell with your cleaning cap off, I know the one side has this little screen on, makes it kind of tough. But if you're looking through here and you're seeing what we're seeing, pretty much good to go. That's a clean salt cell. This guy, real important for chlorine production, right? This is your chlorine production. So kind of like the baskets. If everything is being kind of slacked on, for lack of better words, and you're missing this, you've gone a couple months with that thing not cleaning, you're going to have buildup in there to a point where there's two things. You're not going to get chlorine, number one. Of course, your pool's going to start to turn green, right? You're going to call us and go, hey, something's going on out here. My pool's green. I need you guys out here ASAP. It's summertime. I got a party in 2 days. It's always the same thing. We'll get out there as quick as we can, but we open that guy up. It's 9 times out of 10. That's what it is. If you're not getting chlorine, it needs to be clean. So once these blades start to get packed to a point where they're touching each other, you're not getting chlorine production, and you're also going to start to kind of kill the life of the cell faster than it should, right? It's going to start deteriorating the cell blades, then you're not getting chlorine production, and it's going to prematurely die on you, right? So you want to keep this thing clean. It's just like an oil change in a car or something like that, if you want to look at it like that. It's important to do. It's regular maintenance, and it keeps everything running smoothly. The other thing with these guys, I had a customer yesterday, actually, or Thursday. Some of you guys may have had this already. These guys will clean themselves. So they'll reverse their polarity while they're running, and that's in effect it's basically trying to kick that calcium off back to the pool, right? So if you guys will notice in your pool sometimes, the guy I was at the other day had a few piles kind of piling up in the pool after the filtration runs for its 8-10 hours. You're getting into it and you're noticing a couple piles of those little white flakes in the pool. That's this guy cleaning itself. It's the way it's designed. It's designed to clean itself, and it goes hand in hand with what Ken was talking about with your pH. So if we're keeping the pH balanced, right, that's a whole nother class is chemicals. We go over chemicals for a whole class. So pH, super important, like Ken was talking about. It keeps the scaling down. It keeps everything kind of little as possible. In other words, that kind of stuff, the piles in the pool, stuff like that, will kind of shrink, if not be gone. It just depends on the chemistry in the water. But either way, every 3 to 4 weeks, especially in the summertime, every 2 weeks, you know what I mean? If you're swimming on, you got a lot of chlorine production, you want to kind of just keep an eye on this, open it up, take a peek. If it looks like this, throw it back in and don't clean it. If you got some buildup in there, you're going to want to soak it for a few minutes. Go ahead.
Doesn't it, if you rely on it to clean itself, doesn't it reduce the life of the thing as well?
It shouldn't. I mean, it's like, so if you ran this thing 10 hours a day and you kicked it to 100%, you're going to notice the lights on it, right? There's a few lights on here that are going to stay solid. You got a good light. When you first turn this thing on, it's going to flash. That's running as diagnostics. You have a good light, you have a cell light, a flow light, and then your percentage. That cell light, even that's when it's producing chlorine. So even at 100%, it's going to shut itself off every few minutes and reverse its polarity. And really, no, it's just designed to help kind of kick it off going the other way and kick it back to the pool. So go ahead.
Do most people unplug them to clean the salt cell, or do they leave it?
Don't have to. No, you don't have to. As long as you got your breakers off, you got no power going to it. The big thing is you want your lights off on it, right? And you're going to have your pump off anyways. So these are wired load side on a relay. So if your pump's off, this should be off. If you guys have no pump on, nothing's going on, and this thing's got lights on it, you need to call us. We'll come out and we need to rewire it. But every single pool, our guys are trained. They know if they notice that right away, they'll see this thing on all the time. We need to rewire it. So no, if you shut your breakers off though, you don't have to. If you're more comfortable with it, this thing's kind of a bear to get to. I don't know if you mess with it. This thing's kind of it's underneath the panel. It's bigger guys like me, you got to you're on your knees kind of looking. It's not fun. So, and usually we zip tie these two to kind of keep everything clean. If you like to move it somewhere else, you don't want it in the yard by the equipment, by all means unplug it. We've had a lot of issues with the homeowners. I just can't get the thing in, and once you get the hang of it, it's not hard, but it's generally got enough cord you can move it around where you need to. If you need to move it somewhere else that you're more comfortable with, definitely you can. So it won't hurt anything. Go ahead.
Can we put light in that thing? I check mine every night at 3 p.m. That's when mine go off.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's all green, I'm like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Pool's looking good to go. But then sometimes it's like salt levels are low or pH
Yep.
high or something. I add it.
Yep.
It seems to read it fairly quick.
Yep. Yep. And so when you first turn it on, your low speed is going to run that diagnostic every night. It's going to run a new test, right? So salt levels should vary a little bit. I mean, you shouldn't be like one day 3,200 and the next day you're popping into your app and it's at like 2,500. You might want to call us if you're seeing that consistently. It will depend on temperature of the water, will kind of affect the way it tests the salt. The other thing is cleaning. So if you're not cleaning this thing and it's been 2 months, sometimes you'll get weird readings. You'll get lower salt readings or something like that. Or you're testing the water and you're going, man, this thing's been cranking and now I got no chlorine in there. Like, oh, I haven't cleaned this, and it's just full of junk. So yeah, it will. And if you got the app especially, it will show you more diagnostics on it than on here. On here, of course, you just got green lights. So the big thing on here, the red lights that you'll see more into the fall, winter is the cold water light. Once that cold water light comes on, the water's just too cold to produce chlorine. So it's basically just sitting here stagnant. It's not doing anything. You'll see that more January, February. It's usually pretty good. And then the flow light. So the flow light, if it's red, you got a couple things. You either got it in upside down like we talked about, or this big guy that we're going to get into is also your problem. So if you're running this thing every day on a low speed and you're checking everything, you're getting good green lights, everything's looking good, and then you come out, it's been 4 months since I've done this, 5 monsoons, you're going to come in here and you're going to see that flow light is starting to kind of trigger red more than green. That's that paddle switch, because everything's getting bogged down in here. This guy's after the filter. So it's going to get bogged down in here, and that paddle switch is it's not getting that connection, and you're going to get a flow light. That flow light's designed to do that though. So you're not getting chlorine production if you don't have water flow. So go ahead.
You mentioned winter times when the water temperature is too low to produce chlorine. Is there anything you can do to turn off this stable bypass, or do you just
There's a couple things. You can basically leave it alone. You can shut it off. What most people will do, the floaters we give you on the 30-day salt, we leave those with you guys so you can take the floater and keep it in your garage. And when you get into fall, winter, you throw like a tab in there. If you're seeing that red light consistently, I mean, the water's just cold. You can float a tab in the pool. You can leave that guy in line and plumbed in, plugged in, whatever. I mean, you can leave it there.
So it doesn't reduce its life by running.
No.
Not producing.
No. You just got water running through it. Now I will have there's some people, you can buy what's called a dummy cell, and we have them plumbed in, like during construction, you would have saw just that spacer there. The dummy cells you can buy, and I've had some people do that, like in the fall, winter, they just go, well, I'm gonna take this thing completely out of here. It may help the life a little bit. It's not running through chemicals and everything else, right? They stick that dummy cell in, tighten the unions up, and throw this in the garage. It's up to you. It shouldn't hurt it really leaving it in there. You're just not getting chlorine production on a consistent basis. So that's when you move to the float or maybe a tab. And really like a tab in the summer compared to winter, tab in the summer is going to burn through in about 2-3 days. In the winter time, you can stick a tab in there. You don't need a whole lot of chlorine with the cold water, and it will last you 2 weeks usually, and you can throw another one in there. So it's not terribly expensive either to run chlorine. So any more questions on the salt cell? Go ahead.
It's not really on the cell, but on the acid, is it okay we store it in the garage?
Acid?
Yeah.
So the question is storing acid in the garage? You can. I wouldn't recommend it. The problem is if you're driving into the garage, or like my wife, hits the jug, then you're basically breaking open a jug of acid, right? And then you're in trouble. So that acid will basically chew through concrete real fast, metals. It's gonna, I mean, and if you didn't notice it, and you know, like you hit the gallon jug and you're, I'm inside, it's gonna etch your concrete super. So I like to keep it in the rocks, just on the slab next to the pool equipment, somewhere like if you got little kids, maybe out of the reach of them, maybe get a little compartment outside. A lot of people will get the little boxes where they'll store some stuff in. So no, I mean, the best thing is here's, and this is getting into chemicals more, but you're going to use your acid probably, especially in the summertime, quicker than it will burn through that gallon jug, like where it sits out there and deteriorates, where you'll burn through that acid faster than that. So you're cleaning this guy and you're adjusting pH with it. So you can do it. Go ahead.
What is the life expectancy of salt?
So it kind of depends on, the question is life expectancy on it. It depends on usage, right? It depends on, it's just like everything else, but generally we get 3 to 4 years out of them. They're not designed to last forever. Obviously they're going to produce a certain amount of gallons of chlorine and then basically die off on you. So that's all the blades. So if the blades kind of start to deteriorate, again, if you're not cleaning it and they deteriorate prematurely, you're not getting the chlorine production you should, and then you're going to end up needing one quicker than you do. The biggest thing on these is keeping them clean. At least inspect them, get in there. If you see no flakes in there, nothing's really building up in there, slam it right back into the plumbing and tighten it up and go. And again, if you're seeing the calcium deposits, clean it. But the more you kind of stay on top of it, the longer it will last. So it also depends on usage. We've talked about this in some of the classes. Some of you guys know. I always use her as an example. The lady that's doing pool swim lessons in her house in Mesa, she's got 30 to 35 people in the pool like 4 days a week, right? Her system is running 24 hours a day, and that thing's at 100%. She has to clean the cell like every 3 days, and that's her livelihood though. She's got people coming in with the parents and the kids. They do swim lessons. It's a big pool. She's not going to get as long of a life that you would in a regular pool. You know, maybe you and the wife and 2 kids, whatever. She's going to burn through them a little bit quicker, and she knows that. So they're expensive. They're not cheap. So if you can keep up on them maintenance-wise and keep them running good, all the better. So, but no salt cell out there is designed to last forever. So obviously they'd be out of business. All the companies would be if that was the case. So I think that's pretty much it on the salt cell. If you guys got questions that you think of, let me know. We're going to get into the big guy. So the filter. Some of you guys probably already cleaned this guy already, some not, kind of new to it. Again, the biggest biggest thing on this importance is your breaker. Make sure your breakers are off, right? You don't want any of this stuff coming on while you're putting it back together, taking it off, or the big thing is when you're cleaning the cartridges out in the driveway or wherever you're doing it, you don't want this thing coming on, nothing knows that the lid's off. It's gonna flood your yard. Your pool's gonna end up in your yard. So breaker's off. First thing on this guy, your air relief up here where the orange sticker is, you're gonna turn this open. What this is gonna do is release your suction or the vacuum on it. If you don't do this and you take the clamp off, this thing's not gonna pop off on you. It's not under pressure. It's almost more vacuum sealed than anything. So you're gonna fight with this top to get it off. So you wanna open this guy up first. You're gonna hear it sucking in air, and that's allowing all your water inside the filter to drain down about right here, back to the pool. When you go to pop the lid off, easy as can be, right? So you're gonna pop that off. Your clamp, we have it off just for display purposes, but this is gonna be right around here. You got a nut, a washer, a spring, and a washer, right? What we do out in the field, what I usually recommend is I tell people to take a picture of this. If you've never done this before and it's your first time, snap a picture of this. And it sounds funny, but there's 4 pieces in here. This, everyone laughs, but we'll get to it at the end. But this guy right here, I've met him. So the way out on the west side, he ended up putting the spring assembly on the inside of the clamp instead of on the outside where she goes. And we'll get into that. But me and him kind of came up with the idea of snapping the picture first. So you kind of have a reference point. You'll use it once or twice and you're going to clean this thing every time after that and go, I don't need that. You're going to get it down, but you don't want to be this guy. So this, I believe, is 11/16 socket. Want to crank that thing off. You're going to take the nut off, and we can 7/8. Channel locks when you're out in the field. Channel locks aren't good for though. So you got 7/8. You do got the 2 washers and you got the spring. So what I've done, same thing as the pitcher. You're holding this all together, and I'll generally put it somewhere. I like to put it on the pump lid, just so you know where it's at. You want to store that somewhere. You want to make sure you're not losing anything, right? Get that off. The clamp's going to kind of spring open, and you're into the filter. If you open this guy up, the lid should come off right away. Your filters won't have plastic on them, hopefully. So first thing in here, you got a manifold on the top, right? So, and it's funny I did this right now. This guy there's a little strainer on the top, and we'll get into it when we get back to putting it together, but you want to pull this manifold off. This is tight. It's going to be compressed kind of into the inside of the filter. So sometimes you have to wiggle it. You've got to get this thing off, get it out of there. And then you have access to each cartridge. So these are, if you want to look at it like a car, this is your fuel filter. This is everything runs through this guy. So if you're not keeping this thing clean, salt cell is going to end up suffering. The flow switch paddle on low speed isn't going to engage as easily anymore. And more importantly is your pop-ups, right? Your pop-ups work off pressure. If they're hitting this guy first and kind of just bogging down, right? They're going through here and then they're hitting the heads, and instead of coming out at 20 PSI, they're coming out at 10. So your heads, you tend to, and we get calls like that all year. This thing's not working right, something's going on. Well, and that's our office. When's the last time you cleaned your filters? I haven't done that in a year. It's time. It's basically hitting this, and the heads are coming up, and they're only shooting 3-4 feet out instead of the 8-10 feet like they should. Your main drain at the bottom, your skimmer that we talked about in the beginning, all that stuff is going to suffer. Your water circulation is really slowed down, and nothing's really moving like it should. So these things, super important to clean. What you're going to do is take these out to the driveway, somewhere in your yard, wherever is easiest for you. It is going to be a lot of water, and generally it's going to be a lot of dirt. So keep it somewhere where you're, or clean it somewhere where you're okay with it running into the street, running into the yard. A lot of people will do them in the rocks. If you got a lot of dirt though, it's going to pile up in the dirt and kind of, it eventually washes away. It's just dirt, but it's our Arizona dirt out here. So, but keep these things clean. So this is the question we get a lot. Well, if the pool's always clean every 2-3 months, do I need to do this right? You'd be surprised. You open this thing up in 3 months and you go, man, the pool, I haven't had any windstorms. I'm out in Santan. I'm cleaning these every 2 months, right? You got dirt galore out there. Any kind of little gust of wind and it's in the pool. So you'd be surprised. You open this guy up every 2-3 months and you're brown. It's on it. So some of you guys know if you've already cleaned the filters, they get dirty pretty quick. They filter really small, micron wise. I mean, they filter up really, the clarity wise in the pool, in other words, is going to be really clear with these. So you're gonna see it all in here, cleaning all that dust and the sand out of the water. So keep these guys clean. Keep them, and you can't overdo them. It's like the salt cell. If you're inspecting your salt cell every week and it's clean, throw it back in there, right? These guys, if you're opening them up every month and hosing them down, they're not going to look like this in a month, I guarantee you. And you could literally open these guys up and do them every month, and it goes back to your question in the back. It's longevity, right? It's going. Yeah, if I do them every month, I got retired guys going out every month. They're cleaning their filters, right? That guy's going to get 5-6 years out of his filter, as opposed to someone doing them every 2 to 3 months. And 2 to 3 months is more practical, right? You're going to get 3, 4, maybe 5 years out of them if you're doing that. So it's just like a fuel filter. That's how I always kind of look at it. If you're changing your fuel filter out in your car, the fuel pump doesn't struggle as much. Everything moves cleaner and it moves better. And your car's faster, all that kind of stuff. So you can't overdo these. In other words, monthly, if you're doing it monthly, you're awesome. But typically every 2 to 3 months. So the last guy on this, it's kind of it's hard to see for some of you, but do have a drain plug down at the bottom. We make it real easy in here, or make it look easy to get to. Some of you guys know, if you've already played with this, it's not real fun. It's just the location of it, right? There's a plug down here. If you need to take that plug out, and really you would only need to do this if you got a lot of heavy debris at the bottom, you could take that plug off, and it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It is upside down, so keep that in mind. But you could take that plug off and you could run a hose in here, rinse everything out on the inside. I've got people that don't like to use that method. They'll take out all the cartridges and they'll just dry vac it. You got a wet dry vac though.
That's what I did, because
Yeah.
that plug hard to get to.
It's
And I hate cranking on.
It's not fun. Yeah.
You know?
That thing really is a channel lock. It's got a nut on the tip of it, but it's plastic. So like eventually it's going to kind of round off. We take channel locks and I get onto the bigger piece, and you're right. Eventually it chews it up. So
Wet dry vac's fine, because I have
Yeah.
a new pool, and so I have a little bit of, you get a little bit of that pebble tack
Yep.
too at the
Yep.
bottom, and so it's just a good way to
Yep.
clean that all the way out.
I like it too. It's easier. You got an outlet right by on the panel. You can plug the dry vac in, suck it out of there, and you're in and out. So whatever method, I like that really, to be honest with you. Like I said, the thing is with this, it's kind of a tease, right? And here you're going, man, that's awesome. Well, you got all your plumbing coming out, your salt cell, all that stuff. When you get to your house going, how am I supposed to get into there? Like, it's tight. So wet dry vac is probably a better idea. If you prefer to pull the plug and hose it out. When you're putting these back together, no right way or wrong way. These guys can go upside down, right side up, and there's no order, right? They're not spark plugs. So you can throw all 4 of these back in. There is nipples on the bottom. Basically looks like this on the inside. You're going to want to squeeze them onto that, right? That's the most important thing. Don't just throw them in there. You won't be able to get everything back together anyways, but you're going to throw them down on the bottom, get them all tight, make sure your manifold's tight, all that kind of good stuff. This is going to go back on top. You're going to squeeze all of them in. I don't know how well it's going to work with the plastic, but. So don't forget this. We've all done it. Every guy in the field, some of you probably in here might have done it. You go put everything back together. You're real proud of yourself. We're going, I can move on to my next job, put it all back together. You turn around, this thing's sitting on the heater looking at you going. So now you're taking your socket or channel locks and pulling it back open and getting this thing back in there, right? So what we were talking about when I first pulled this manifold off, there's a little mushroom strainer. This guy's got to go back on top. It's kind of a 50-50 mix. Sometimes you guys will pull this manifold off and this guy will still be in there. You can leave it alone, right? If it comes out with it, make sure you get it back on there. This is an air relief. So any kind of air pocket on the top is going to get sucked back to the pool and blown out, and it basically will take the air out of the filter. If you don't have this in here, you're going to have dirt, everything's mixing around, and it's going right back through that pipe, back to your pool, back to your in-floor heads, back to your gears, back to your salt cell. It starts to just kind of gum everything up. So
Can we do that deal as well?
we're going to talk about it. So, and then you got your spring. The spring goes on the top. And this is for the lid. And when you put everything back together, it's going to sit on this and literally compress everything together. So with that pressure, nothing's moving out. So you got all that back together. gasket. And you could do this while your cartridge is out. It's probably a little bit easier, so you got all that room. So the gasket on this guy, there's two things. You got a lip that it sits on, right? Always pull this O-ring off. Clean your lip. And people go, well, yeah, I don't. Trust me, it's going to be the same as this. You're going to put it back together, thinking, all right, I'm all proud of myself. Bing, bing, it's dripping. So clean this. This guy I run through a rag, rinse it off, run it through the pool, whatever you want to do. I don't lube them. The only reason for it is I think on these guys, you're not getting into it like you are your pump. So you don't need that constant moving of the lid. I keep them basically the way they are, keep them clean. Once you get the lid back on, it's going to compress down onto it. If you're lubing these all the time, you can lube them. It's not going to hurt it. I almost lube them and then kind of run them through a towel and get most of that excess off of there. You'll also get into this when you're cleaning them. You're going to get into that, especially if you lube it a lot. You're going to get it attracts the dirt, the sand, all that stuff. You're going to pile it up on there a little bit easier. So you can get to older jobs where you can tell they really lube the heck out of them. You can see it melting down the sides, and it just makes a mess to me. I like it clean. As long as you keep the gasket clean, keep the lip clean. You can even do it on the top. This piece you won't generally have a whole lot on here, but you can keep this stuff clean. It's going to save you time. So all the better. When you put all this back together, you compress it all, you get your clamp back on, you can be proud of yourself. It's not going to leak. It's not going to have any issues with it. So this guy back on top. You want to sit it down on that gasket. The thing up here, you got your air relief. You're not going to use this a ton, so it's not a huge deal if you forget, but you do want to pay attention to where this is. And also you can close this for a second and kind of see where your gauge is going to be. This is your filter pressure gauge. So right now, if on the back wall of the house, you put it on like this, you're not going to be able to read your pressure, right? So every couple weeks you're going out there, or every week you're checking your baskets, you're keeping an eye on your pressure. You're not noticing it because it's facing the wall. So you want to keep that in mind. You can even draw like if you don't want to close this, and I'm going to get into this in a second. If you don't want to close it, when you go to take this off, draw a line or something, you know where your gauge usually sits. And that way, when you orientate your lid back on, you know where it's going to go, right? So we'll go more towards you guys. Now we can see the gauge. That's all back together, clamps back on. We're going to leave that air relief open on the top. This guy is kind of tricky until you get the hang of it. We won't go all the way, obviously, but if you want to hand tighten, get it started. And you're back. You take your socket, that rubber mallet you have over at your pump, you're going to kind of hit it around as you're tightening and get the slack out of there. This clamp should almost kiss. You're about a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch from each other, and you're going to be good to go. So obviously, as I tighten this, it's going to squeeze tighter. And again, this guy on here, that's where you run into the problem, right? So he put the spring assembly in the middle of the clamp, and it couldn't close all the way, right? So he's got it tight. He's all proud of himself. Kicks it back on. The other thing is this guy was closed. So when this is closed, what you're doing is compressing air into here, and you got that pocket of air. As that pump's running, it doesn't know what's open or what's closed. It compressed air. What happens when air is compressed? It's got to go somewhere, right? So just the perfect storm for him, which is a bad way to put it, but the spring was in here. He had this closed. It compressed the air. This thing rocketed off of him. He was standing about 8 feet away from it, and right at him, straight forehead shot. I mean, it was bad. He was in the hospital, stitches, everything else. Luckily, his wife was home. We met him out there. Met him out there, went over stuff. We came up with the idea. He was real cool about it. We came up with the idea, hey, maybe we should snap a picture. That way you kind of have a reference point when you first do this of how this should look. So get it all back together. The air relief up here, you do want to leave open for that same reason. In case you got something going on, you missed a lip down here, something funky. If you're not compressing air, as this thing fills up, you're losing that air out of there, and eventually water is going to shoot out, right? If he would have had that clamp the way you had it, would have just kind of went and just sat there. With no way it would have rocketed off on him. A lot safer. That way you don't got any compression or air being kind of compressed together and exploding on them. So open that up. You got everything back together right. You're going to leave this open. You're going to kick your pump, your breakers, everything back on. You got your high speed on, right? You're getting everything primed back up. You've checked your baskets. We know we've got water circulation going on. You're going to have this guy open until you have water shoot out. Once you got water shoot out, you can close it. You're good to go. So generally, this guy will run down the dome too and sit right around this clamp, and you'll see a drip. So if you take a towel, you can wipe that off, make sure you're not going, come back out 10, 15 minutes later, make sure it's not dripping. I promise you, if you clean that gasket and clean the lip of the filter, get it all back snug tight the way this should be too, you're never gonna have a leak on it. So only time really outside of all that is if that gasket's just starting to deteriorate, if it's got cracks. And I mean, that's the thing, you inspect it 3-4 years down the road, that thing's starting to get cracks and everything else, pop on a new O-ring, probably 20, 30 bucks, get a gasket in there and you got a good seal again. And then of course, if you got your drain plug out, you wanna, wherever it is in the front, you wanna get that thing twisted back in. And I like the wet dry vac because you're done with it once you clean it out. So you're back together. This is super important, like we said, for circulation, filtration, flow switch. Number one, we get a lot of calls, not producing chlorine. We'll have them kick on low speed. When, yeah, I don't have a flow light. It's red, right? So we're going, all right, well, let's start, kick your low speed on. And a real easy way to test is kick your low speed on. If you're getting a flow error, kick your high speed on with it. If it engages after that, you know it's these guys. So unless someone just tweaked your speeds down on your app or something like that, the filters need to be clean. So just be wary of this. Like Santan Valley, where I'm at, Queen Creek, Gilbert, some of the ones down south, we get hit hard with dust storms, right? So if you clean this June 1st, July 1st rolls around, you go, man, we had a few really bad dust storms. My pool looks crystal clear. It's because of this guy. So maybe go, maybe I got some time this week. I'm gonna pop this open and do it. I'm not gonna wait the 2-3 months. I'm not gonna wait till my pressure gets above 30, 32 around there, and you're going in here and you're cleaning this guy. So just kind of be wary of that. Same thing fall, winter, you can give it a little more of a break. We don't get the wind, we don't get the dust. You'd still be surprised. You clean it October, you get into it like January, February, and you open this thing up going, this is pretty bad. So it's doing its job. It's filtering all that dirt out of the water, and you want to keep it clean and keep everything moving and circulating the way it should be. Any questions on the filter? So we didn't touch on it. So that's a good question. The question is, what should the pressure read on the gauge? Generally speaking, with an in-floor system, if you're checking pressure, you want to kick your high speed on, number one. That's going to give you a true reading of where it should be. You want to be about 20 to 27 at the highest, 25 generally, right around there. It's going to vary depending on the pool. Equipment-wise, how far it is from the pool, all that kind of stuff. But generally 20 to 25 on a in-floor pool. If you're a vacuum pool, it should read more about 10 to 12 on a high speed. Anytime you're getting up here and you're getting closer to the 30, 32 consistently, it will jump around with an in-floor as it moves to the zones in the pool, right? You're gonna see your gauge moving around. If you're consistently around that 30 mark though, it's time to clean these. So generally, like when I do orientations with homeowners, that's what you're telling them. Hey, every 2-3 months, just put it on the calendar. All of us have the tablets and the phones now, ding your watch if you need it to. Hey, it's time to clean your filter in 2 days, and it alerts you. You put it on a calendar, you know you're not gonna forget about it. So the pressure is a good idea to watch. I'm just not super big on it because I think people start to forget to look at the pressure. They'll empty baskets and they're back in the house and this thing is going, I'm ready, and you didn't even look at the gauge. So if you put it on the calendar to do every 2-3 months, I think it's a little bit easier just to remember. So.
Do you use any chemicals when you clean the cartridges?
No.
Water?
Generally water. A nozzle at the end of your hose is a good idea. No power washing, obviously. You don't want to tear the paper pleats in it. You're going to be in trouble. But a good nozzle on the end of your hose. The only chemical we really kind of recommend is Simple Green if you had to. If you use a lot of suntan lotions, oil, stuff like that, it will break down the oils. We also will recommend usually like a second set of cartridges sometimes. Keep a second set of cartridges in your garage. You pull these out, you can pop them back in and you're good. You can bring the other ones in, set them in your garage, let them kind of dry. We had a customer, the first one we did, I let them dry for a couple weeks and he goes and pound them on the ground and a lot of the dust falls out of them, right? And then he hoses them down and you have a second set to swap out when it's ready instead of always using the first one. So, but Simple Green is really what we recommend. And then of course you want to hose it down real well if you use that. So, what's the Filter Clean? So there's a company in Tempe called Filter Clean. They do too. It's tough with cars, but if you got a truck or something like that to load them into and you're around Tempe, or if it's worth the drive to you, they do filter cleans for actually a pretty good price. It's $50. What was it, Andrew?
They charge for the square footage of your filters, but it turns out to be like $30 or $40.
Yeah,
They do offer a coupon for a first time customer who's never been there before, and they have a 20% off coupon. So it makes it pretty worthwhile.
I mean, and again, if you got the second cartridges, you can throw them in, get the filter back together, and you can run those down during the week when you're down there by work or something like that. Bring them over there. It's a decent price. And they do that. They also reband them. So the guys down here, they'll reband them. All your guys with the Pentair ones should have about 4 or 5 of them on there. If you start to see these pop, there's some retail stores out there that they're selling you on new cartridges going, as soon as they'll start to pop, you need new ones. Well, if everything's looking good on the mold up here, you got no cracks, you're taking care of it, you're really cleaning this and staying on top of it, those things will wear down the ring around here, and they'll redo those for you too down there. So I can't think of the word. I'm having a brain fart. The bands, yeah, there you go.
Keep the cleats all
Yeah.
apart so that you get the maximum use. Otherwise, those cleats will scrunch together and you'll have a bunch of cleats that don't have any filtration in them at all.
Yeah. So they do that also down there, and again, it's a pretty good price. So if you're around there on those guys, I'd probably same day. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If you had a second set, you run them down in the morning before work or something, you pick them up afterwards, or you pick them up the next day. I mean, they'll hold them and you're good to go. So if you don't have the second set, your filter's down until you get home. You obviously leave your breakers off. Same thing like we talked about. You don't want to leave that breaker on and then bring your cartridge down there for a day or two and forget. So you'll remember real quick when your backyard is your pool. So you get out there and it's a lot of water. So, yeah, real quick, sand filters. I know we don't do a lot of them. There's not a lot out there. Sand filters, if you are one, for anyone online too, really backwashing is you're cleaning it, but sand filters are going to do it a little more often. So they're backwashing about every 2 to 3 weeks. At least that's what I recommend. And they're putting it into a backwash mode and just backwashing all the dirt out of there and getting it out to wherever they're backwashing it to, a pit or the streets, clean out, something like that. So DE filter, same thing. They're backwashing probably every month, and that's how they're cleaning their filters. They're replenishing DE back into there. DE filters can be kind of a mess sometimes. We like to push the cartridges a lot. These guys will filter your water really well, clarity wise, and they're easy to clean if you stay on top of it. So don't let these go. I opened one up the other day. It was about 14 months from startup and it's never been done. So they're already into new cartridges. So it's just like everything else. It takes wear and tear, and that pump doesn't know if your filters are bad or good, and it's just going to keep trying to pump water. It's got to go somewhere. So you run into issues where the bands will start to pop. The rings up here, you'll start to see cracks in the rings on the mold. That's when you know you're in trouble. So keep them clean. Any questions on the filter? Any more, I should say? Good to go. So there's a couple other things up here that we do sell. We sell Fin. This guy is kind of the newer technology, smart kind of stuff. This guy does float in your pool, test chemicals for you, pH, I believe it does chlorine, correct? pH chlorine, sends it to your app on a phone and lets you know what your chemicals are looking like. And of course it's in the pool all the time, so it's doing a constant read of the chemicals. Super cool thing. And this is essentially a membership, right? As long as you're paying for it, the yearly membership, they'll replenish the Fin if it goes bad. So, and they will go bad there.
pH,
What's that?
it's temperature, pH, and alkalinity.
Chlorine? No,
No chlorine.
no.
That sanitizer pH.
Oh, yeah, sure.
sanitizer. There.
And then once a month, you
What's that?
actually do a test strip or take a picture of it.
350.
The problem we have with some of our systems.
That's a year?
Is the probes that measure
Measure
the
that afterwards,
the
the
sanitizer
and
and
the
the
initial
pH.
buying it is $350, and I think you have to buy a yearly subscription, I think it's a little less.
But the
You using
probes tend to get stuff on them, and their reliability goes down. When you do these test strips, it allows the app to adjust, so that it's adjusting for the breakdown of those probes. And the beautiful thing is with the membership.
Yeah.
Is once that
The drain plug? Yeah.
Yeah. A new one. So if you have, for example, the IntelliChem system that we have, and you have the probes, when those probes go out, you can buy a new set of probes, right?
You want me to?
So this is, I like to talk about it.
We
like,
did.
I think it's the LifeLock
Yeah.
commercial, where you have a security guard, he's mounted as a security monitor, right? So this is your security monitor, monitors everything. You still have to add the chemicals, but it's gonna tell you, it's gonna ping your phone, if your pH gets high, if your chlorine is low or high, it's gonna ping your phone to tell you if you need to adjust that.
What was the fee?
What's that?
What was the fee? I heard someone.
It's
Three.
the initial purchase and the unit and the initial purchase is $349.
$300 a year for the.
And then I think the renewal, the annual is $99.
Yeah.
Oh, like age or something. And it pulls a.
It's- Go ahead.
On this one here, I haven't done this one yet. So with this one here, you said you got 75% water, 25%.
Yeah.
And we had the erratic acid.
Second. Yep.
Is this the way it's gonna be when it's cleaning? Or the other?
Yeah, and you can take the cleaning cap and go either end. It don't matter. So if you notice it heavier, so the acid's gonna sink. It's heavier than water. So if you notice it heavier down here, I would cap that end and stick it the other way. Add your water and then add acid in. This is easy. It'd take you a few minutes. Once you do it a couple times, it that's all.
Just for salt cell, you know, that is another service that we offer.
We do the Pool RX too, just the mineral deposit. This goes in your pump basket. It will sit here. This just helps with sanitization. These run what, $70. There's some people that really love these things too. Again, they go in your pump basket. They just sit in there and they help with sanitization of the pool. So there's some options. The fin stuff is kind of where everything's going nowadays. Obviously with the smart technology and the apps and all that stuff, it can test chemicals, let you know, he's at pool score right now and he knows his pH is low. So it's pretty cool. So
Which basket?
you generally we go in the pump basket just because you're gonna be checking this one pretty often, right? Like we talked about, this one's gonna have most of the debris in there. So I would generally just go in the pump basket and set it in there. So,
I went to the 4X and I put it in the big one because I've been in there for a week, but the reason I went there, and I think it helps with reducing chemicals that you put in your pool. And I went that way because I do my own pool now, so I moved down to the coastal range, so I need one.
sure.
And with my pool guy up here, I was having service, and he said, his issue with the fin was what you mentioned, which was you get a calcium buildup of the modules. So, he said, you're gonna touch the pool anyways, do your drops, whatever.
Yeah.
You might as well just do it yourself, but he thought the Pool RX was good. He said a lot of pool guys use it as well.
Yeah. These are the fins. I mean, there's all kind of applications for it, right? If you get the snowbirds that are gone, maybe they throw the fin in, and the pool guy, they got a pool guy every week, right? They still need a pool guy checking it, but they can go on an app and it's just a little bit of a luxury to go, all right, my pH is reading good. He's doing his job. You know what I mean? It's like Ken talked about. It's going to tell you what it is. It's not going to add anything for you. So you can kind of keep an eye on your pool guy, stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's if you're working a lot, if you're a pilot, you're gone a lot, you can check your chemicals on your phone. So like I said, it's pretty much where everything's going. I mean, most of you guys in here probably have the remote app on your phone, right? You can turn your pool on. There's all kinds of stuff now that it's just crazy what it's turned into. So
You can also have more than one. So if you have a spa, this will work in a spa.
that's pretty cool. Like a hot tub, you mean, or something? Yeah, that's pretty cool.
How long does the pool last?
6 months. Yep, generally.
Yeah, the fin, I'm a pool guy. I've been doing this for 20 years. I owned a pool another 20 years before that. And I know I know I need to keep my pH down, but I'll see a calcium line on my towel and go, what do? Things like, gotta be out shelving this pH as well, right? So it's just something that helps remind you, because a lot of times in pool school, I had a cup of acid every week. Well, you may have to have 3 cups a week. You know, everything changes. So by having that monitoring system, if you're not diligent enough to test your pool 2-3 times a week, you don't have time to do that. It's something that really, really helps. Personally, I've had it for now a year and a half. You know, where my pool used to go like this, it's not like this, straight line. So it just gets you in the habit of maintaining that stuff. And once you're in the habit, you know, once you create a habit, then you're golden. But people say, you know, people throw up their hands and say, everybody says the calcium line on your tile is inevitable. It's not. Keep your water balanced, you'll never stay calcium line on your tile.
The fin also, doesn't work too well like the salt cell in the winter time. But you can
Cold
put it
water.
into a hibernate mode.
Yeah.
Recap it with some cool water and put it in a closet until cool time.
The good thing is in the fall and winter when it starts to get where the fin or the salt cell's affected by the cold water, it's like we talked about. You throw a tab and a floater and you're generally pretty good. You're going to get into, you still want to check your chemicals every week, maybe every couple weeks in the cold season. You notice your pH pretty much isn't moving anywhere. You know, every once in a while you get a little bit higher, you throw a little bit in, but it's the summertime. I mean, May to September, October, everything ramps up. It's go time. I mean, you got to stay on top of this stuff. You're staying on top of cleaning the cell, the baskets, or you got your kids and everyone else. Hey, what's going on in the pool? And oh, I can't swim. It's green. So you got them screaming at you. I got a 10 to 12-year-old. I'd be in trouble. So you're keeping everything up on it. So for sure. So cold season's kind of where you can kind of, yeah. It's just like the air conditioner. We all go, oh my God, finally you can open windows and the air conditioner just sits there stagnant for 5 months. It's nice with the electric bills being $80. So yeah, still keep an eye on it. Everything reduces down in the winter. So go ahead.
Could you go over that Pool RX again? What is it?
This is just Andrew can explain it better. It's basically a mineral unit that goes inside your basket. It just helps sanitization, kind of helps keep the water clean. He's using it. I mean, it just helps reduce the chemical usage basically. So it's going to help you less chlorine, pH, stuff like that. So we sell them. When we're done today, if you take a ride out the door, our office, we got a little retail store in there. It's got all the print on the windows. You can't miss it. So, and there's Bridget and Donna over there. Be happy to sell you one.
You pick up acid over there as well?
Yeah. Yep. We got acid, we got chlorine, we got brushes, we got nets, cartridges. Yeah, basic stuff over there. You know, if you guys are ever in need of the cartridges, the pool starts to get older, and always call us. We generally have, to be honest, really good prices on cartridges, and ours are OEM stuff. They're original Pentair cartridges. They're Hayward cartridges if you're into the older pools, and they're really comparable, like the big boys, Leslie, stuff like that are selling generic. So always call us and see what we can do.
What's the life, again, if you take care of your filters every 2 to 3 months, what's the lifetime of those? Did you say 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, generally 5 years. I mean, it depends. I mean, like I said, I've seen some pools go pretty good while, but you know they're taking care of them. It really depends on if you're getting abused too. I mean, with the dust and everything else out there, and even if you're doing them every month, they're taking punishment. But if you keep them clean, they're gonna last you. So.
Our water, I lived in Mesa for 5 years. We live in Gilroy down there. The water's a little harder, down there.
Yeah, the water hardness out here is just, I mean, it's our state. It's tough. So that's all you can do. Try and keep them clean as much as you can, and long life. Go ahead.
You said you have another class that's on chemicals.
Sure. Next month. So it'd be July. It's usually the last Saturday. This month, I'm gone next weekend on vacation, so that's why we bumped it up. But it should be July 27th.
I've heard several times that we stay in balance, you don't get calcium buildup. I have mine tested virtually weekly to every 2 weeks. Never seen anything drastically out of range. I have calcium on rocks.
It's tough. It's tough. That's what Ken's in a perfect world. If you're out there every day adjusting chemicals and you're going to be better off, right? But it's tough. It's tough to be out there every day. And the calcium in the water out here to me, and in certain areas especially, it's just so hard. You're going to see it build up, but it's tough. It's very tough. So, yeah. What's that? Calcium? There's two things.
Depends on when you want to go away real fast.
Yeah.
You can wait, right? You can wait, raise your water level up, bring your pH down. Same thing that caused the calcium to go out under the tile will cause it to come back off the tile into the water. pH down, it'll pull that calcium off the tile. And then, you can use a pumice stone if you got more time and money. If you want just to scrub it out, you can do that. If you want to get it done, there are bead blasters. They actually use plastic beads and sand blast it without sand. It's actually plastic beads, so it doesn't scratch the tile, and they'll clean it all off, and they'll put a sealant on there to help.
How about the artificial rocks?
Like the grotto and, yeah.
Bead blasting on those sometimes will take the paint off.
Generally, you go to the point where you can't stand it anymore, right? And they come in and they will bead blast it or something when they do your tile, and it will etch it, and you'd almost repaint it or something, or have the grotto guys touch them up, something like that. I mean, so where it's tough. It's tough on some of the stack stone out there too if it builds up on there. Some of the stack stone, the glass bead guys won't even touch because it's just going to shred that stack stone. Some of the newer stack stone, the travertine, there's some tougher stuff that's awesome. I mean, it can take the punishment of a glass bead and the tile bead. They'll hold up a lot better. So, but it's like Ken said, it's a lot of elbow grease with a pumice stone, or you wait till it's bad enough and you drain your pool. We talk about draining the pool in chemistry. Draining your pool, as you want to do about it depends on your water, but every year to 2 years, sometimes 3. But you want to, like, as you drain it down in the fall, if your tile's just to the point where you can't stand it, the wife's going, I hate the way it looks. You get a glass bead guy out there and have it cleaned, probably $250, $300, depending on your perimeter. And it's like they're in and out in an hour, 2 hours, and tile is brand new again. So a little bit easier than pumice stone. I've met a lot of guys that are, especially retired, go, I'm out here swimming every day. I clean 6 to 8 tiles a day with pumice stone and some acid, a little mixture, and by the time he works around again, he's back to where he started, and you're getting, so it's tough. Generally speaking, when I'm out in the field and people ask about it, it's just let it go until you can't stand it, and it's bothersome to you enough where you just have a guy come in and beat it. So we got a guy that we work really well with, Ted, that's his livelihood. That's all he does, and you come in and bead blast, and they can adjust pressure down or up to certain tiles and stuff that kind of help take care of it and just pull the calcium off of there.
You asked about the next pool school. Now, having done this now for 3 years,
yeah,
4 years, we have a library. So if you go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/PresPools, PRESPOOLS, we actually have a swimming pool maintenance playlist where these previous pool school recordings are on there. So you can actually go watch this one again. What did he say about that? Want to go scroll through there, you can do that. We've got them on the filter cleaning, water chemistry, programming, using the screen logic app. All of those things are now on YouTube if you want to go watch them at your convenience.
Is that website?
It's youtube.com/PresPool. So if you go to YouTube, you just search residential pool, you see our channel, and then go to the playlist, and then the swimming pool maintenance. Has all of these.
Go ahead.
At the beginning, you mentioned about cleaning the pool and the amount of time and stuff. What is the recommended timeline?
For hours, you mean?
Yeah.
That's a good question. The question is filtration hours. That's a great question. Again, it's kind of like everything that we talk about today. It's going to depend on your pool. It really does. Generally speaking, in the summertime, most pools are about 8 to 10 hours, right? So you do about a 6 hours on a low speed and a 4 on high. But by all means, if you got a smaller pool, or if it's just you and the wife swimming, you can shrink it down a little bit. Maybe you can get away with 8 hours, 7 hours. You do 4 hours on a low and 3 on high, or 5 and 2. If the pool's staying clean, the chemicals are reading good, then you're saving energy, right? So the retail stores out there will tell you every 10 degrees it is outside is how much you need to run the pool, right? So right now it's about 100 degrees, 105, you're running 10, 11 hours. If I take you to that lady that's doing swim lessons, you're not getting away with 10 hours a day, right? So it really depends on your bather load, which is the bodies in the water, or your your gallons. I mean, there's a lot of variables in it. So generally about 8 to 10 hours right now. And then in the winter time, you can really crank it down lower. So.
We just got ours, we're in the week 4
Mm-hmm.
but it's only set for 4 hours.
On a high or total?
It comes on at 4 in the morning and shuts off at 7.
So that's generally where we would set it, but yours should be,
What you guys program.
you're coming on at 10 at night, probably 2 on a low speed. You're probably just not hearing the pump because the pump's running real low speed and you won't hear it. So are you on the phone app? Get with me after the class, we'll look at it. Yeah, that's it's probably too low right now for the heat. I mean, you want to run a little bit longer, so.
Do we care if we run low first or high first?
No, we just, our guys, when we get into startups, so we're kind of all on the same page. It generally is 10 p.m. to 8 and we'll do the low speed first, right? It really, I mean, by all means, if you get into tweaking your hours, we've talked about it before with the variables now too. We've got some people that will run it 24 hours a day on a real low speed just to circulate water. I mean, you can get into some really playing with it and kind of dialing it down to your pool. So, and we encourage that. I mean, when we're doing orientations, we should be going over that with you, like, hey, the 10 to 4 and 4 to 8 or 10 to 8 and 4 to 8 is what we have it set up every startup. But after we leave, it's your deal. I mean, I've been to pools 2-3 years old that are 10 to 8 still. They go, I leave it like that. Well, it's okay. Like in the wintertime, you're overkill. You don't need to run it that much. In the summertime, we get calls a lot in the office. Hey, I'm not getting chlorine in here, right? I'm not getting this or that. That's what started the whole swim lesson one is we're going, well, you're only running 10 hours a day. Maybe you need to bump it up a little. We didn't find out she was doing swim lessons till a little bit later. And then it changed into, okay, we need the bigger cell on here and you got to run it 24 hours a day. And like I said, it's her livelihood, but it depends on usage and everything else. So.
You already talked about low speed, high speed being inside of low speed?
No. So what Ken's talking about on the salt cell itself, the way we wire these up, and it goes for UVs or ozones too, if you have them, they will only come on the low speed relay, meaning high speed is on a separate circuit, right? So if you get home, you can play with it. You can get home, everything's off. You can turn high speed on by itself and you're gonna notice nothing coming on. That's because it's on its own relay or feature circuit. So what we do, and they should be going over this on orientation, but if they're not, you're running, like if you got a salt system or UV, ozone, whatever, you should be running your whole schedule. Let's say you're running at 10 hours a day total. You're gonna run at 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. That leaves that guy on for the whole 10 hours. Now you have at 4 to 8 or something like that for your high speed. It ramps the pump up, but it leaves your low speed relay on, meaning it's giving power to this guy or it's giving power to an ozone or UV. So it's staying on for the whole filtration. So that's why you'll see them overlap.
Intuitively, you're thinking there's two schedules, right? But in reality, there's one schedule inside of another schedule. So if you run your low speed from 10 to 2 and then your high speed from 2 to 4, those 2 hours you're not going to have your salt cell time. You need to run your low speed for the entire time that you want, and then the high speed is scheduled somewhere inside of that schedule. So that the low speed will still be on, the unit will think low speed's on, right? But high speed takes priority, so once you have the high speed come on, the low speed relay will still be open, firing your chlorinator or your UV system, and then the high speed will be clean.
We've had people, they like the high speed running like at, I mean, it's more expensive. Most of the time it's 3 p.m. to 6 is the expensive hours. But yeah, so people go, I get home at 2 and I swim every day. I like the pool to clean. So they'll run their cleaner or the high speed like 2 to 6, right? And their low speed runs at night. And that's fine too. You can set a second schedule for that low speed to mirror the high speed. And that way it's like Ken's talking about. When it comes on to clean high, it's also kicking that low speed relay on and it's producing chlorine. So we run into it here where you'll get calls out again, the salt system's not working. Our guys, it's the first thing we're doing. We're checking on low speed. Number one, if the paddle switch is engaging, so we know we got flow. And number two, that the RPMs are good. But most importantly is the schedules. We're going, hey, you're only running your low speed 3 hours a day. Well, yeah, I kicked that down. I'm trying to save energy and I got my high speed running for 2. Even if you ran that thing 5 hours total at 100%, it might not be enough time to produce chlorine for you. If you're in that pool and you're swimming all hour, you got kids in the pool, you're using up chlorine. So we run into a lot. Hey, you just extend your hours a little bit, maybe up your percentage on the salt cell, that kind of stuff, and take care of you. So we get into a lot. It's tough out here with AC. Everyone's cranking AC, the bills. So you're trying to reduce electricity as much as you can, right? And that's the nice thing with the variables. You can get away with 2-3 hours a day cleaning. That's your high electricity use. And then you run the low speed maybe 10 hours a day or something just to help with the chlorine output. You're not burning any kind of electricity, not a whole lot, in other words, and it's dumping chlorine in while you're running. So it's just tweaking some hours. So we encourage really people to play around with it. Sometimes it's frustrating. You get out to people 2-3 years old and it's the 10 to 8 and 4 to 8 and you're going, oh no, you guys said it for me and I've never played with it. I'm like, and I'm out there because they're not getting chlorine production, you know what I mean, or something. So it's going, you just need to run it a little bit higher this summer or something. I mean, if you got kids and everyone, all your friends swimming in the pool, you got to bump it up. Keep in mind that swim lesson lady, that's the biggest thing. You go, oh, everyone's going to be different. So.
If you're on the time of use plan with SRP or APS, that changes, right, in the summer and the winter. So you're going to have to go in and change your schedule if you want to take advantage of that, right? You can't leave it the same because then your schedule may be in the winter time is on off peak, but then you get into summer and it turns out it's now on peak. So you got to watch that if you want to take advantage of that.
Sure.
Does your office out there in Surprise have a little store like it used to? Or is it just a sale?
No, but they are, so if you call this office, we have guys that travel all the time. So if you want to pick it up at that office, they can pay it to that office.
I got a guy there almost every other day. Dave lives right in Surprise. He's on, that's what he's doing every day is we're transferring and anything we need to do if it helps you out.
Over the phone or something?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, if you need new cartridges or something like that, I mean, it's anything. And we had Dave transfer down, take a day or two usually, but he's over there quite a bit. So, yep. Go ahead.
What activates our aerator on?
So the aerator is, number one, is a manual valve. It's over by the equipment. You got a little ball valve. It's a 3/4 inch ball valve, red or blue handle, and it should say aerator, a sticker on it, but it's a little ball valve. You got to crank that thing open or close manually, and then the pump has to be on, right? So the thing with that, if you're cranking that on to cool the water down a little bit, what I always tell people is turn your high speed on and set it. You don't want to turn your low speed on and open that thing up and go, okay, that's fanning out pretty good. That high speed comes on at 4 in the morning and you're blasting your neighbor's yard. So you got way more pressure running through the pump. So if you're going to set it to come on to cool the water, do it on high speed, set it. And then of course, when low speed runs, it's going to be kind of petering out, but you set it on high speed if you're using it for cooling the water. If you're using it for kids or, something like that, and you can do either or, as long as you remember to shut it off. Don't run low speed and crank it open so they can swim under it and everything else and forget about it, shut off again. It's going to be blasting your yard or your plants or your neighbor. So, and again, if you're salt water, you're going to be losing salt in the pool. So, but yeah, it should be a manual valve over at your equipment. So.
And remember, that's going to be a lot more, if you're using it to cool water, it's going to be a lot more effective if you run it at night.
Yeah.
Okay, just leave it on and just.
Yeah.
No problem.
No.
Yeah, just make sure that you set it
The right way.
It's not going to take us that many GPMs to run that thing where it affects your inflow really. So you're totally fine to use it on. That's why that's essentially what they're there for. It's a 50-50. Some people use it for cool water. Some people